Our dear participants, so another hot talk session of today's conference would be about the ingredients for brands omnichannel e-commerce success in Vietnam based on local and regional key learning. It will be delivered by speaker Emmanuelle Gounot, the CEO of Intrepid Vietnam. Let's welcome Miss Emmanuelle. Tiếp theo, chúng ta hãy đến với phiên thảo luận về chủ đề các yếu tố tạo nên thành công cho thương mại điện tử đa kênh của các thương hiệu ở Việt Nam dựa trên những hiểu biết và nghiên cứu về địa phương cũng như là khu vực do diễn giả Emmanuelle Gounot, giám đốc điều hành của Intrepid Việt Nam trình bày. Xin nhiệt liệt chào mừng diễn giả Emmanuelle.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Emma, and I'm CEO of Intrepid Vietnam. Intrepid is a leading innovative provider of digital solutions, and I will be delighted to talk to you today about the ingredients of omni-channel success for brands in Vietnam, and based on observations in Vietnam and across the region. So let me project my screen and we will get started. All right, everyone can see my screen. So before we dive into the nitty-gritty details, I think it might be important to take a step back and talk a little bit about how the e-commerce landscape has evolved in Vietnam. We've seen an acceleration in e-commerce penetration, more consumers and more channels. And with COVID-19 obviously serving as a catalyst for e-commerce adoption, obviously the frequency of use as well as the increase in spend. Many of you will have seen the Google Temasek and Bain report that highlights Vietnam as the third largest e-commerce market in Southeast Asia. Vietnam is expected to top 39 billion USD in 2025 in terms of the size of the e-commerce market. Some of that is based on the demand side. We have more people online, with more than 70% of the Vietnam population having internet access, half of them shopping online, and more than half that have now used e-wallets or online payments. This is a major win for Vietnam, given that historically this was largely a cash-driven economy, and that this was a barrier to the penetration of e-commerce. In parallel, we've also seen during the pandemic a very big evolution in the makeup of the consumers in Vietnam, the digital consumers. Historically, a lot of our digital consumers were based in Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi. And right now we see that of the 8 million new digital consumers in Vietnam, more than half of them come from non-metro areas. On the demands, on the supply side, merchants also acknowledge that digital platforms have been a saving grace in this pandemic, with more than a third of them saying that they probably would not have survived the pandemic if it were not for digital platforms. So more consumers, but also more channels. I'm always interested to see that now, day after day, I have more brands talking to me about how they can change their own website from an informational one to a transactional one. So they're very interested in going direct to consumer through their own website. In parallel, we see the flourishing of social commerce. So what is social commerce? Social commerce is a convergence of shopping functionalities and social media. We've now seen this for a while with marketplaces now having more social features for engagement and social media building commerce functionalities. In short, this allows us to have social on commerce and commerce on social. So fast-growing audience of social media users in Vietnam, more than 72 million, with more than 60 million Facebook users, and 2/3 of Gen Z that says that they spend time for leisure time on TikTok. We also see the rise of quick commerce. So of course, this has been powered by Grab, for instance, where customers are eager to get orders on demand and get their orders as soon as possible. In parallel, outside of the Grab marketplace, we also see that many other marketplaces or channels will leverage these logistics marketplaces to get products in the hands of consumers as soon as possible. In parallel, I like to talk about the lockdown having spurred DIY e-commerce through conversational commerce. Many of us will have placed orders through Zallo or WhatsApp during the lockdown, making bank transfers and so on. And we see that even after the lockdown, and now there's a fast professionalization of this conversational commerce, which becomes an important bridge as we think about online to offline and offline to online. When we look at all of these different channels, they're fast emerging, they're content driven, experience driven, and network driven. Oops. We've established that we have many more channels and they are here to stay. The recommendations I'll make today are going to be anchored in Intrepid's experience across Southeast Asia. We work with more than 70 brands in omni-channel store management across marketplaces, both regional and local, social commerce channels, and supporting brands in many aspects of their brand.com activities. We also support brands in their digital marketing journey, on platform, off platform, supporting them across the entire funnel, from awareness and consideration to conversion and retention. We also offer customized tech services for many brands, as well as advanced analytics, not just on where their business is today, but also market and competitive insights. So what do I see? Very often, it's easy to fall in the trap of thinking we're doing omni-channel, where in fact we're just doing multi-channel. And very often, these various channels will be managed as separate businesses with dedicated teams, separate processes, and infrastructure, and really operate in silos. And this really is what we need to solve for as we move to omni-channel management and omni-channel success. So I'd like to focus on three main ingredients today for brand omni-channel success in Vietnam. The first one will really focus on tech solutions for optimized productivity and scale. This will allow for a seamless product and order management as well as CRM. Second, it's important to make sure we have consistency and holistic planning across all the touch points in the customer brand experience. And lastly, we need data to ensure that we continue to make data-driven decisions and optimize them day after day. So let's get into it. First challenge is really around this lack of efficiency when we manage the multiple channels separately. This would require a lot of human capital, a lot of resourcing. This creates room for error and often poor SLAs to meet customer expectations. Also creates missed sales opportunities. So when we look at some of the various aspects of managing various channels online, we have, for instance, catalog management, where prices need to be updated regularly, images need to be changed and customized to reflect promotional dynamics. Products need to be renamed to reflect the promotions. All of this, if it's done manually, can be very time-consuming. Another big area of concern will be stock and order management. Very often, to avoid the risk of oversell, brands might have firm stock allocations per channel, managing the inventory separately. This means that we create stock at risks if the demand is not exactly as planned, and we no longer have that flexibility in inventory allocation. On the flip side, if we have too much of a buffer, this creates oversell risks at times when we know there are huge surges in demand across channels. For instance, if you're running a flash sale. When you have firm stock allocations, it also reduces opportunities for virtual bundling and other customization, which are so critical in categories like FMCG. So we're missing out on opportunities to react quickly and have more interesting commercial dynamics for consumers. Lastly, when we talk about chat, I've seen many brands trying to do this in-house without having a dedicated software that would allow them to take on multi-channels. This means that often they struggle to meet SLAs and best-in-class SLAs in this area around 1 or 2 minutes, If they have dedicated specific resources per channel, then it may not always be efficient based on the volumes. All in all, there's a CPA in Australia study for 2021 that shows that 70% of small businesses in Vietnam say that tech is holding them back in their growth, and as a result, 44% of them invested in more in tech in 2021. And this is really something that I would encourage all brands and sellers to do. So the solution indeed is investing in tech. But what sort of tech and how do you do it? This can either be done in-house or through an expert partner. I would recommend investing in a stable OMS and series of functional tools that will allow you to automate a lot of the store operations and, in short, work smarter, not harder, so you can really free time for value-add activities. So streamlining store operations with excellent things on listing, product, pricing, centralized order management and processing, which is especially important during campaigns and flash sales. Add to that the ability to do virtual bundling, so you can have endless customization possibilities without being capped by the inventory that you have available and that you would need to allocate to all these dynamics. When it comes to customer service, having a tech-enabled approach with an omni-channel customer service software that will allow you to meet the SLAs, best in class, also triage the inquiries effectively, and ensure that there are easy default scenarios to answer the most common questions from customers as soon as possible. And when everything is powered by tech, of course, this opens endless possibilities in terms of reporting and data. The second challenge we had discussed is really around the customer experience, ensuring that it's consistent across touch points. Too often, we operate in silos, and all marketing channels might be present, but they're not fully integrated. The messaging might be brand and channel focused rather than customer focused. When it comes to the marketing collateral, the design, the content, it can be fragmented, inconsistent, and the customer might feel that they're talking to a different brand, that the message is not consistent. How do we tackle this? So first, it will be about proactively planning all these different touch points, ensuring they're consistent across the marketing funnel and the consumer journey. Too often, we underestimate the number of touch points that are required to drive a customer to conversion. So here, this graph is obviously a very simplified version of what could happen to a consumer and how they would become aware until they convert or come back. But I think it's a good illustration of the number of touch points that can be involved in the diversity in channels. And we need to plan for that. In practice, this means that we need to ensure that all the off-platform ads reflect not only best-selling products, but evolve very quickly to reflect all the commercial dynamics, that everything is optimized. And so when clicking on an ad, we land on an optimized landing page with consistent collateral when it comes to both the copy and the design. Also very important to focus on that. And given how fast the commercial dynamics can change, it can sometimes be challenging to get it all done quickly. So having that planning and keeping track of all those touch points remains critical. Secondly, we've talked about customer service before, and customer service needs to be seen not just as transactional, but also a way to engage with customers and in distinct touch points. We need to have consistent service and a consistent brand persona. At the same time, we need to have fluidity as expectations from consumers are changing and going in the direction of conversational commerce. We've talked a little bit about the tools that are required to meet best-in-class SLAs. We need consistent service levels to deliver on the brand's promise. We need to have repositories of information and tools to make sure that agents provide the same responses, that they're consistent. At the same time, all of these interactions, even in transactional in nature, need to reflect the brand's tone of voice, and in every single one of these interactions, be that over call or chat. At the same time, we need more fluidity Customer service is a channel for engagement and sales. And as much as we want consistency, we also need to show that we are willing to go off script to focus more on being on brand. This requires some soft skills in terms of upselling and cross-selling consumers, but also the ability to advise like a sales counter will be anchored in data that can allow agents to offer better recommendations to consumers. And then we need to be aware that each channel might behave a little bit differently. So for instance, for Facebook stores, we see that the inquiry rate or the number of the contact to order ratio is going to be a lot higher. And this is a reflection of how that channel behaves over time. So we also need to be ready for that. Lastly, data remains a holy grail, and this allows us to make data-driven decisions, iterate, learn. Ideally, information on where our business is today would be layered with market insights. So it remains very important to be able to go deep, to be very granular, to cut and slice the data, to understand how various channels are performing, so we can have an optimized go-to-market strategy for each channel. At the same time, we need to make sure that there is we look at data of behavior across channels, so we can meet consumers where they are. More and more that we have online to offline and offline to online expectations in this omni-channel environment, and so it's really important to understand where consumers are. There are a number of external reports out there to better understand audiences per channels, their demographics, behavior, psychographics, and so on. At the same time, what's also very important is understanding market insight. What are category dynamics? What would be your market share per channel or in a given campaign? What are the various segments? But also understanding some of the competitive dynamics within the category. So we would recommend looking at opportunities to go deeper there. If I were to recap, I would say that so omni-channel is here to stay more channels, and we're going more and more into online to offline, offline to online, or O2O. And there are three things that brands need to focus on to be successful in omni-channel and not just have a multi-channel approach. First one is around tech. A tech backbone is critical for an efficient business that can scale. Then optimizing the multiple touch points in the consumer journey from a marketing collateral perspective and planning, but also looking at customer service as a touch point in its own right. And lastly, investing in granular insights about the business, but also about the market and the competitive landscape. This is it for me today. I'm happy to take questions, or otherwise, if we're at time, feel free to get in touch as well over email or in the lounge later.
Thank you, Miss Emma, for your great sharing. Rất là cảm ơn bà Emma về phần chia sẻ chi tiết vừa rồi ạ. Thanks a lot for joining and sharing with us.
Thank you very much.